And welcome back to Janky AF and Year of the Aerostar, episode number 64. Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I am 64? And in the case of a Ford Aerostar, the answer is undoubtedly yes. My 1986 Aerostar is nearly 40 years old. I am still needing it and still feeding it, and that will not change anytime soon. So, you can see again I am wearing red here, and that is the sort of theme of the week here in Year of the Aerostar. I love red Aerostars, and we had a batch of a couple really nice red Aerostars. The last one was in 1990, and without further ado, I'll introduce this one now. Here we have a 1991 Ford Aerostar, listed for just $1,000 in Lorain, Ohio. Now, I bought one time a Buick from a woman named Lorraine, but that was in New Jersey. All right, driven only 102,000 miles, automatic transmission. The exterior color they say is burgundy, and that's something I've talked about with the deep dark barn reds of the Aerostar. Interior color is gray. The fuel type is gasoline, and it's listed as in good condition. Seller's description: 1991 Ford Aerostar 3.0 V6, automatic air, cruise with a Z, stereo with a, is that how you spell stereo? No, stereo with an I, like new tires, new exhaust, newer battery, motor runs great. It's very funny. It's all caps, and instead of periods, they use commas and just varying degrees of commas, I guess, to show space between the two sets of all capital letter words. Needs transmission work, slips. Pull apart has one for $175. Or fix. Van's not all rusted out like most of them are. $1,000 or best offer. And it's funny because I feel like both of these are being sold by a person with the same name. That's interesting, isn't it? I don't think it's the same person, but just chalk it up to coincidence. A simple twist of fate, as Bob Dylan would say. All right. First off, just the last one's 1990. This one's 1991. So an interesting era for the year for the Aerostar. The sort of the age of transition between sort of 89 to 92. The Aerostar went through a few changes, and 91 was right in the middle of that. So we're going to have sort of the older style interior, but a newish or newer grill style, of course, with your three-spoke grill, your modern grill, but with a Ford blue oval badge going in the middle instead of up top, as it would do from, I believe, 92 all the way until 1997. Again, we don't have the sort of flush headlights here. We have the older style inset bulbs, one of which looks to be newer than the other, which is interesting. First thing, a beautiful deep red color. Here we see the back. It's an XL, and I love that we have nice, beautiful front and rear, almost head-on images of this Aerostar. A little crack in the bumper, that's common. I mean, someone commented on TikTok. I always make a joke of saying the handsome dashing 19 whatever Aerostar. Someone said, I think something like, those handsome dashing bumpers are going to turn into dust or crumble to dust or something like that. It was a funny comment. I appreciated it. We can take a joke here at Year of the Aerostar, and definitely a weak point on these vehicles. This plastic was very, very brittle. It's very hard to find ones in good condition. It's very hard to find replacement parts because of that. But this, I had a bumper that was almost worse than this that I managed to sort of piece together and then paint. So this is no problem. Good luck finding an Aerostar bumper. Now the standard length I think are probably a little easier to find than the extended length, but that's neither here nor there. Okay, very interesting. I like this. Last one was all gussied up. It was the Eddie Bauer, the all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive extended. It had the gold sort of two-tone paint lines. This is very much more bare bones. Just a nice red standard length Aerostar, gray unpainted bumpers. But even in the bumpers, Ford did this nice little sort of two-tone black section. I think the later Aerostars, this was gotten rid of, and I think sometimes these little metal trim pieces were even taken out, or plastic made to look like metal, and it just became like a solid color. But I like these older style bumpers. Just a nice little, sort of little design cue. Now these wheels are very interesting because they look like, you know, the standard wheels from like sort of a pre-92 Aerostar where you could put the dog dish hubcaps on, and yet they have these like center caps that go, you know, right inside of your lug nuts. And I think maybe you could take this center cap off and put a dog dish hubcap, but this almost looks bigger than the wheels that you can put the dog dish hubcaps on. And I don't see the little metal rivets that, you know, hold those dog dish hubcaps in place. So I'm wondering if this is like a separate wheel altogether. And the center cap has the same design that the dog dish hubcaps, this like sort of Ford cheeseburger design, we'll call it. Also used on the Ford GT, interestingly enough, with the Ford script writing in there. But this one without the Ford, just a straight, maybe it's just a hamburger, no cheese. The final thing on this, even though it is a bare bones, we do have a lovely little three stripe pinstripe here. And, you know, none of the fancy sort of wraparounds or doodads, just a nice pinstripe running from, you know, your front quarter panel all the way to the rear below the sliding door, you know, track there. So I think, you know, it's a nice duality between the last one and this one, just much more bare bones. And the last one had 191,000, this one only 102,000 miles. So we did note the transmission is slipping. But, you know, I personally think this would be a great candidate for a manual transmission swap. I don't think that's too incredibly difficult to do on an Aerostar because they were offered with a manual transmission. So you would think your bell housing would hook up perfect. You probably just like, you know, and you would think throwing in a 3-pedal pedal box won't be too hard either. Those would be your sort of major things that you have to deal with. Or like they say, go find a, you know, automatic transmission used and put that in there, or try to fix one. But at this point, you know, you're probably better off just getting one that you know works. Then again, if you pull one from a junkyard, you don't necessarily know that it works. Interior. The last one we had the gold seats, and this is a much more sort of demure gray interior, which I like. I like the plain gray interior, very similar to my 93 Sport. Although these seats look, even maybe they're a little, maybe it's just the lighting, but these look a little bit more two-tone in color than mine, but sort of like, you know, no frills. You don't have like an accent piping. Now a red accent piping on these seats would look great, especially with the red exterior color. And I gotta say, like among these early Aerostars, it seems like the tan interior was much more popular, or the tan and brown interior. So to see a gray sort of pre-facelift interior is very nice to me. I like the original style steering wheel in gray with the gray steering column. You would see them in tan a lot, and in blue even sometimes, and occasionally in red, you know, the real creme de la creme. But it is fairly well, being an XL, it's fairly well equipped. It looks like you have power windows and power locks. So that's a nice feature. Again, giant floor-mounted transmission shifter here, which I absolutely love. You know, maybe my guess that one headlight was newer than the other is true, as we do a little bit of Aerostar sleuthing here and see a new Sylvania lamp that looks like it's just been installed. So that's always a good sign when someone's been doing, you know, they go ahead and replace the headlight. Means they've been sort of like, you know, paying a little attention to it and trying to take care of it. It looks like it could use a little bit of cleaning, but the interior overall, you know, a little rip here, but nothing too bad, nothing that's like, you know, going to set off alarm bells or anything like that. The rear bench seat also looks like it's in very nice condition. And is this a brown? I almost can't tell if it's brown or gray. Maybe it's just the lighting. Maybe the windows have a slight tint on them, or it's you know, an interesting time of day. But you really see how brown that looks, even though I believe it's gray. Interesting picture of a tire here. I don't see any dry rot going on, but then again, good tread. But you know, good tread with old tires, you can still have dry rot going on. Not too much to discern from that picture. So moving on. Now I will contrast by saying van's not all rusted out like most of them are, and that's true, you know, but it's not to say it's completely devoid of rust. As you can see here, you know, a lot of bubbling going on. This may have even been fixed at one time or attempted to be fixed and it's bubbling up, or it could just be the original. You know, a little bit going on in your rocker and your wheel well there. Very, very common area, and you know, you could, you know, scrape that out and try to bond to it, and you could probably do a pretty decent job because it looks like most of the metal's actually intact. Or if you wanted to cut it out and weld some new one in, that would be your prerogative. It looks like actually the tires, a little better picture of the tires here, and they do look to be in pretty nice condition. Like new tires, as per the description, so that checks out. So just again, I can't see if this has the digital dash like the last the 1990 we looked at. I can't really tell if it's the digital or the analog dash. Being a 91, I would almost guess a year after that 90 that it probably is a digital dash, which is really cool. Certainly a rare commodity in an Aerostar, because after 90, I believe at 92 or 93, they went back to an analog dashboard gauge cluster. And which is funny because it's in theory a step back in time, but they redid the entire interior, and everything became much more rounded and bulbous. And here everything's a lot, well, still quite bulbous, but very squared off. So not as much to say about this one as the last one. However, I think it's a very nice contrast to see sort of a much more bare bones Aerostar. Everything's sort of different other than the transmission, both automatic. But here you have the standard length instead of the extended, the two-wheel drive instead of the four-wheel drive, a little fewer bells and whistles. But boy, for $1,000, if you're like a, handy person special, as they say, put a new transmission in this, and you're at a really low mileage Aerostar for 1991. And it looks like it's, had been taken care of with new tires, new headlamp and all that. New exhaust, newer battery. Motor runs great. I mean, boy, this has a lot going for it. This would be a really, really good pickup. And even if you want to take it to an independent shop and maybe they charge you $1,500 to put a new transmission in, with parts, or $1,800. I got a transmission put in my '86 Aerostar because it blew out while I was driving up in South Carolina, only about 15 hours from home. That was a very presumptuous of me to think I could make it home, and it happened on a bridge. I've never told this full story. I will someday, but so there's no shoulder to pull off on, and nearly got in an accident. The person behind me, I don't know how they didn't see my big brown turd lumbering along in the lane, but they had to swerve out of the way at the very last second. They crashed into a guardrail. Everyone was okay, luckily, and incidentally, we were both headed to Baltimore, so if we had just communicated that somehow, being strangers telepathically or something, maybe we could have teamed up and they could have towed me to Baltimore or something like that. But as it turned out, none of us made it to Baltimore that day. at least I didn't. But we got the '86 back home, and it's been a faithful companion ever since. So a little, trip down memory lane there. I've had my brown Aerostar nearly 10 years at this point, which is astounding. It's amazing to me that I've had it almost 10 years. And of course the green 93. And, boy, if I had my druthers, I would rope this into the fleet right quick. But we got a lot of things going on here at Janky AF behind the scenes that are, tying up funds right now. So maybe one of you lucky viewers out there will have the chance to take this home. I've gotten a couple emails from people, and hopefully I've reached out to you already, but and one day I'll do like an Aero Mail, I think I'm going to call it, segment. A lot of people have seen some of these listings and purchased the vehicles. I'm not taking credit for that, not because they watched the video and bought it necessarily, but they happen to notice it as well, and they've then maybe after the fact seen the video on it and actually told me that they've purchased a beautiful blue extended sport model, I believe. So that's really, really cool when you can see someone take one of these home and then, hear about it on the back end. That's really, really cool because it shows me that people care about these vans and that they're out there saving them. So I really, really am appreciative of that. So Janky do Thanky. There you have it. A beautiful 1991 Ford Aerostar XL in Lorain, Ohio, in a beautiful shade of red or burgundy, or split the difference and call it crimson. Boy, just another great one out there. People say you don't see these things that often on the road, but they're out there. So get them while they're hot. Jump on the bandwagon, because I really do think I'm going to do my bull market for 2023 soon, and not surprisingly, the Aerostar will be showing up on that list because it's such an underrated vehicle. Haggerty, if you're out there, if you're out there, Haggerty, and you want to sponsor us, I basically already talk you up for free. But Haggerty has a great article on how the Aerostar sort of undeservingly lives in the shadow of Chrysler's minivans, and I would argue also in the shadow of Chevy and GM's minivans of that era. But, you know, as we all know, this is the year of the Aerostar. The age of Aerostar has come again, and here we are right in the thick of it. There you have it. Thank you so much for watching. This has been another episode of Year of the Aerostar here on Janky AF. We'll have another one for you very soon, and until then, Janky do Thanky.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.